Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Okay, so it's a it's a beautiful shot of 4 kids and a very young-looking mother, maybe.
Okay.
It's an outdoor shot. It's a beautiful portrait of there's a boy. Well, first of all, the mother's in the middle.
Yeah.
I guess I'm assuming she's a mother.
Yeah, that's my
holding arms around the 4 kids.
Yeah.
2 boys, 2 girls. Everybody's looking really bright and happy. It could, if I were to guess where, it'd be like a photo on a deck by Thousand Islands. If I'm just going to say it.
No, but you're close. This is, I guess, the other side of Toronto. This was at Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay has the Canadian Shield, and Thunder Bay itself has kind of a famous mountain, Mount McKay. It's called. It's an old volcano, whatever those things are called, and you can go up to the very top, and it's a beautiful look down at the city and at Lake Superior. It's an amazing place to go up to. And this photograph, I would say this is like my wife and I adopted all 4 of our kids. And we adopted the 2 eldest ones here first, Brandon and Leica. And the 2 younger ones here, Matthew and Roxana, we adopted later. And this is probably the first time that we drove out to Saskatchewan with the younger twins, with Matthew and Roxana. So it was a really important trip because it was the first time that my siblings, I have many siblings, got to meet Roxana and Matthew. And long trips in a car. I mean, they can be awful, but my wife and I tried to make it really enjoyable. Like, we didn't push ourselves every day. We would drive maybe 4 or 5 hours every day, and we'd stop at almost every beach and take lots of photographs. So yeah, this is important because, as I was saying, family is really important to me. And I love our kids, and adopting 4 older kids, I mean, let's face it, if kids get adopted at an older age, it's because they've experienced some awful things, that's taken them, why they've been apprehended from their birth family. So all of our kids had trauma to deal with and things like that. And so,
Mark.
Yeah. It was the hardest thing we have ever done in our lives by far. Sometimes keep close to just saying, can we do this? But we're both stuck, my wife and I. And it's also the greatest thing that we have ever done. Because I was just saying this to somebody I work with today, there's something about an adoptive, relationship when it turns out well, and it always doesn't always. It's a special kind of bond because the parents know and the kids know that it didn't have to be, that we chose them and they chose us. They were older kids, so they had a say in things.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really special kind of love, I think. No better or worse than any other kind of love, but it's a different kind of love, I think, than what is found between parents with their biological children. And I'm coming at this from another direction too, because my parents adopted kids and one of my sisters. So it's built into my DNA, so to speak. There's so many kids in Ontario right now. How many people are in Ontario? 6 million or something like that. At any given time, there are about 10,000 children who are Crown wards, and the older ones rarely will get adopted. I mean, they'll grow up in institutions or foster homes, things like that, and they won't have parents. And that is so hard to, it's so hard to thrive in that kind of situation.
No, of course. So, here's the joy for me of this podcast is I don't know who I'm going to meet. Yeah. I don't know where the conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
And these bombs kind of land. And like one of them is, you started off, you mentioned the landscape of growing up in the prairies. And my brain was kind of like, okay, I kind of think I know where we're going. And then it happens always that, the photographs are interesting. Like, it's like in your life, these are like signposts or whatever. And so And then as an external person for myself who reads into this photo. And so as you're telling this story, which says so much about you. And okay, first of all, what's your wife's name? Are we allowed to
Oh, yeah,
say it?
yeah, yeah.
Melanie.
Melanie. Yeah.
Okay. So Melanie and you are a special kind of couple, special kind of people, because to adopt older kids, whoa, that's like, that's intense. And so in this photograph, yeah, like when I look at it at first, I say, okay, I see four kids, everybody's smiling, it looks really
Yep.
warm. And then, so the younger kids are
Hmm.
twins, and I would have guessed
Yep.
twins. And then, because, they have certain common features, and there's this closeness. It's a really intense
Yep.
photograph. And then there's you telling what's around that. Yeah, like Mark, this is a strong way to start the conversation.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, but you also said you're a teacher at the university and you teach
Yeah.
English.
Well, I used to teach English literature, 16th century English literature. And then a few years ago, well, some years ago, I switched over to work in a teaching center. So my job for the past number of
Mm.
years has been to help professors learn how to teach more effectively. Because most of them
Oh wow,
don't get any training. They're just dropped down into a classroom and said, "Here, teach." So they
yeah.
they want to learn. They want to become as good at teaching as they can, and so that's what I do.
Which says a lot about what your brain
Yep.
is like, what kind of person you are. Just in terms of, I ask you the simple question, well, what does photography mean to you? And I'm like, here comes a train, boop, boop, and then you come in, and I'm just like, okay, Mark, like, whoa, it's just. And what's beautiful is that you're covering this incredible ground. Now I want to say, how many dogs do you have in your house?
We have four dogs.
Ah, me too. What is it? Canadians with four
Really?
dogs. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I assume you said that your wife and kids may be arriving, and when they do, I might hear some barking. Yeah,
This is them arriving now, so it'll probably take them another 2 minutes to get in, and
all good, all good. So we can either stay on this topic, if you want to say a bit more about this really, I mean, profound. Most humans, most couples, most parents, most families aren't like yours,
no,
and so what's that switch in your brain that says, okay, let's adopt two kids, and then, oh, let's adopt two more kids?
yeah. Well, I remember, like I mentioned, I grew up with adopted brothers,
Yeah.
and in fact, we're First Nations or Indigenous
Okay.
brothers. When I grew up, they were still the term Indian was still
Yeah.
used, but not
Sure.
anymore in Canada. And now, I mean, that's come to be known as the 60s scoop, and the government, swooped in and in lots and lots of cases inappropriately took Indigenous
Oh,
children from their Indigenous parents. At the same time, again, because of 400 years of oppression and cultural genocide and things like that, Indigenous communities were struggling with raising their
yeah.
children. And so people like my parents, you know, amazing people, the best people I've ever known. I mean, they've passed away now. But I asked my mom once, and I remember it was my father had actually just gone into emergency at the hospital because he had tachycardia. So his heart rate was at over
Mm-hmm.
200 beats per minute. And we thought he was going to die. And I don't know why. I said to my mom, so why did you and dad, what made you decide to adopt children? And her answer was so simple. It just blew me away. She said, because there was such a need, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I thought, oh man, that's,
Wow.
how can you have a better response than that? And so that's,
Wow.
I think, what motivated my wife and I, just that need,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help.
Yeah.
I'll mention one other thing too. Like my wife grew up as a Mennonite. And are you
Okay.
familiar with Mennonites? Sort of.
No.
Well, I'll say a little bit about it. It falls into the broader category of Anabaptist Christians, and Mennonites traditionally have been very service oriented. Social justice
Right.
is incredibly important to them. Pacifism, for many centuries, they were also persecuted, run from one country to another in Europe, and some eventually had to go to South America, and then some came to Canada, of course. And so that aspect of being Mennonite, when I married into her family and, we started going to a Mennonite church, I also found being Mennonite and the values of being Mennonite to be really, really conducive to myself. That
Mm-hmm.
idea of being a servant to others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we can help, we have to help, you know
Right.
downstairs on our wall, one of our kids, I think it's our youngest kid, wrote on a chalkboard. She said, if you can't help 1,000, just help one. Just
Right.
start someplace. Don't let yourself feel overwhelmed.
Right. Now, I'm going to take that as the perfect segue to, first of all, it's a beautiful statement, such a beautiful statement.
Mhm.
And we could totally get lost. Not lost, we could totally get immersed
For sure.
in all of that. But we have to look at the next photo.
Okay, let's do that.
So, is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So, if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.